We are live from the New York Stock Exchange. Amazing. I'm Diego Sanchez, president of HousingWire, and my guest today, actually, I'm kind of your guest, but my guest today is Tim Bowler, president of ICE Mortgage Technology. It's so great to talk to you again.
Hey Diego, it's great to host you here at the New York Stock Exchange. This is an absolute honor for me to be able to bring you down here to 11 Wall Street, the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, to talk about what's happening in our industry.
Absolutely. So, Tim, you've got a little bit of an interesting background.
I do.
So you were at the Treasury.
Yep.
You were at Goldman Sachs.
Yes.
And now you're at ICE.
Yes.
Tell me how that perspective and your career so far informs your strategy for ICE Mortgage Technology.
Well, it's a great question. So whether my time in the private sector or back at Goldman Sachs or in the public sector when I worked at the U.S. Treasury, a lot of it was really centered around housing and housing finance.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working in the housing finance space back in 2005, prior to the great financial crisis, where I did a bunch of advisory work for mortgage-related companies and specialty finance-related companies and banks. And it really got to understand both the plumbing of the mortgage system, how mortgages were manufactured, how they were serviced, and then the value that gets created when they're funded appropriately in the capital markets. I also got to see some of the issues associated with housing finance, heading into the great financial crisis and their aftermath. And I was lucky enough as an individual to be asked to join the U.S. Treasury Department in 2011 to really help try to sort through and work through a lot of the core policy issues and economic issues associated with how we were going to reset the housing finance system in the United States, post the great financial crisis.
Right.
And that really informed me around how a housing finance system that, when it's structured right in a transparent manner, that does put the household first, that puts the family first, really delivers over the long haul. It can also continue to deliver, tremendous economic benefits for those that come into the housing finance ecosystem. One of the things that I always, think back to is, all those poor families that lost their homes during the great financial crisis. Have they been able to stick with it? How much more wealth they would have now as a household? Because home prices, since their peak back in 2000, call it late 2006, 2007, in many cases more than doubled or tripled. So if we'd done a better job as a country responding at that point in time, working with those households that bought that house as their primary residence to keep them in, just think about how much more wealth those households would have had. And that motivates a lot of my work today here at ICE Mortgage Technology is how can we deliver technology solutions, better workflow to help a mortgage get manufactured better, to make it an easier household experience when that loan is being made. And then when it's being serviced, to have that household have just better opportunities to engage in refinancing, home equity, but in a safe and sustainable manner.
So ICE Mortgage Technology is really overlooking that entire life cycle of a mortgage right now.
It is.
How are you thinking about that in terms of the platform that you're building and your strategy and your product roadmap?
Yeah. Well, I first and foremost, our strategy and our product roadmap is 100% focused on helping the entire ecosystem. Right? We want to be that trusted partner that is unconflicted, that is focused on helping every lender that we interface with be able to do more with households and be able to do that as efficiently as possible. So I think about at the beginning of let's just take a first-time home buyer as an example. At the beginning of that life cycle,
all right,
we are definitely at the New York
Jim Cramer.
We are definitely at the New York Stock Exchange, and that is a wrap on Cramer for your audience.
Amazing.
It is great. So just for your audience's benefit, and those that aren't aware, Jim Cramer, Mad Money, gets filmed here every night. So after the close of market, and he has the floor, and he's done this now for 20 years.
Amazing.
So hence him and his crew were out there celebrating today, and we got to watch it.
Amazing.
But back to your question about how we at ICE Mortgage Technology are helping. I'll go through that example of that first-time home buyer.
Yep.
So we're working with lenders to be able to give them consumer engagement tools that can really help and make it easier for that first-time home buyer to find a home. Secondly, once they find the right home, be able to work with their trusted lender, that trusted partner, that lending officer, to find the right mortgage product for them, to to be able to populate that application efficiently, to be able to get that loan underwritten in a way that's straightforward and understandable from both the lender's perspective and the household's perspective when you're engaging with information. How do you make it easy to get source data and documentation? How do you make it easy to go back and engage with that household as you're going through the underwriting process to get them approved? Second, from the lender's perspective, working with that first-time home buyer, like how do you make certain that that process is as seamless as possible?
Right.
Within the context of delivering them letters that they need in order to say they have committed financing, you can help with that in order to be able to process that loan in an expedited manner as possible so they can get to close very quickly and then buy that first-time home. And then, once the loan is funded, it's registered and recorded in our ecosystem on MERS, and then leveraging a lot of the technology we have at Simplifile to record the security interest at the county level. Being able to take that loan and have it boarded into a servicing system with ease and the minimal amount of compliance risk possible. And why that benefits that first-time home buyers is multifaceted. First and foremost, if that originator is going to sell servicing, and it's going to go into a servicer that's on the MSP platform, which is the ICE platform. We're developing and delivering technology that will allow for a straight-through process from that originator in Encompass, that's leveraging our Encompass technology, to get that information over to the and the underlying data and source documents over to that new servicer in a lights-out process, such that that new servicer that's going to service that loan over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 30 years, depending on the journey that household takes, how they can take on that information extremely efficiently. Secondly, if it's the originator retained servicing, how they can just do that in a lights-out process in-house, to ease the transition to servicing, and then begin to interface with that household much more dynamically. And so, turning back to that household and how we're helping, there it's, once that loan is being serviced, we can provide a life of loan experience. We can help that servicer engage with that household to say, hey, it's time to refinance. You can save over $500 a month. You can save over $600 a month. Or if the household's been occupied in that house for a number of years and they've built up equity and the time is right to send a kid to college, we can help that servicer identify an opportunity to provide a home equity loan.
Got it. So
it's that whole life of loan ecosystem that we can deliver, and we can dock into the various clients, whether that be a small IMB, a large regional lender, or the nation's biggest seller servicers. We can provide a technology suite to all of them across the board.
So let's dig into the secondary and capital markets process, that process of the originator potentially selling the loan to a servicer. You have started, ICE Mortgage Technology has started to look at that space much more closely from a technology and product development perspective. Yes. Tell us more about those initiatives.
Well, it goes back to what we just discussed, Diego. Yeah. So if we're helping an originator create a loan file in Encompass that can easily be boarded on to MSP or servicing system of record without errors and data integrity, and that underlying file can move efficiently from that originator over to the servicer, that creates just tremendous benefits for the system of buying mortgage servicing rights. Because one of the core costs and core risks associated with taking on servicing is, did you get the data right from the start?
Right. And
we can address that. Secondly, and this goes back to your question on capital markets, as you know, MSRs get traded. Yep. They move over their life. An individual loan might have 2, 3, 4 servicers over its lifespan. And what we're working to do is, within the context of our ICE Mortgage Technology ecosystem, be able to move a loan that's resting in one servicer's platform on MSP over to another servicer's platform with minimal friction and minimal risk. What that does, using capital markets lingo, because we're here at the NYSE, is that makes the market more liquid.
Yeah.
Right. Traditionally, if you think about trading MS servicing rights, it was a clunky process. There was lots of friction built in because there was manual work, a lot of stare and compare, a lot of sampling of underlying portfolios, and a lot of back and forth even after the sale took place. But if we can actually connect that selling servicer to that buying servicer, and they can go straight from their instance of MSP over to the buying servicer's instance of MSP and have that data move flawlessly, that adds a lot of value to the ecosystem and makes it a much more liquid and transparent market.
So tell me more about why you're thinking about and building your own in-house technology as opposed to plugging into the other capital markets platforms that are out there.
Well, what I would say is like just taking a step back to like who we serve. We serve the entire industry.
Yep.
So what I'm focused on right now is actually making certain that that piping works. That the data and the documentation can flow seamlessly. And if over time that evolves into us having an opportunity to help the broader market by allowing it easier for one servicer to engage with another servicer, we'll let that technology be that platform to do so. But today, my relentless focus, just with my team, is in order to get a better trading market for whether it be whole loans or servicing rights, it's just have that seamless connection from that point of origination onto servicing, or if the loan's already being serviced, from one servicer that's on MSP to another servicer on MSP, without having any data errors occur after the trade has taken place.
That makes sense. So one partnership that the HousingWire audience was talking a lot about was your recent deal with United Wholesale Mortgage to handle a lot of their servicing technology.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about that relationship?
Oh, sure. United Wholesale made the decision that they wanted to bring servicing in-house. It's been an organization we've known for a long time. They're listed here on the New York Stock Exchange. And we were honored that when they made the decision to bring servicing back in-house, they selected MSP to be their system of record and us as their partner. So we're very excited to help them as they bring servicing in-house, as making that core strategic decision. And we were there when they were ready to make that transition.
Amazing. Well, Tim, it's always great to catch up with you. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Diego, it was my pleasure, and thank you for coming down to the New York Stock Exchange.
It was amazing.